Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Opinion Machine, the show where we talk about all things gaming. My name is Killjoy, and today we're going to be talking about Awesomenauts. You've probably seen in the last couple of months that we've had a lot of gameplay off of Awesomenauts. But a conversation came up the other day talking about Awesomenauts' model of free-to-play and the way it works with its characters. And it was an interesting discussion that I had with both Dave and Jack, and I kind of wanted to bring it up, and I basically want to ask the question, like, is this free-to-play model surrounding the heroes, as I'll get to in a sec, good for the game, or is it a problem? So, what I mean by this is, we're just going to go to Froggy G here, and go on items. Now, when I bought Awesomenauts, I bought it back when it was not a free-to-play game, and it was different. They changed things over time, yada yada. And you still have to level up the noughts and things. And you'll see this with some of the last characters here. When I go to Snork, for example, and go to items, you can see that some of this stuff is grayed out, I believe. Yeah, level 3, so level 2. So some items are grayed out, and some are level 3, and so it's just a weird set of items. Anyway. Most of the time when you play MOBAs, when you play a character, you gain, in more complicated MOBAs like Dota and League of Legends and Smite, you pick the character and you have option to the shop, and there's probably certain builds and recommended builds that you can do. Now this game does try to do that. It does try to say, hey, here's the recommended builds or whatever. But the conversation that came up was, and this is something I hadn't thought about because most of these characters I've got, most of the stuff like Deadlift I probably won't have. Oh, I do, because I got them at the time. So some of the last few characters that were added in, you'll probably see that, yeah, I need to level them up. Because they were added in, I think, after I'd bought all this sort of stuff. But essentially, is this good for this game? Is the fact that some of the content is locked good for the game? And Jack and Dave rightly were just like, hey, no, this isn't cool. Because, like, this is what you start with, like, with Katara. You start with these 6 items, or 6. You start with the 3 items here out of 6. And all this stuff's blanked out. Right? Now, I was playing a bit of devil's advocate on this, because I was thinking, in my head, like, the likelihood is you probably want... these items here are probably the ones you want as a beginner. So, the argument on the table is, this is bad for new players, because they're at a disadvantage, because people who have leveled up that character have access to all the items, versus the fact that the new player only has these items here. And I was thinking, well, maybe they did this to make it so that it's a bit easier on a first-time player, so they kind of know what to buy. And we're going to find out now. We're going to look through Katara, and I'm going to look at her abilities and figure out, stuff that's locked versus unlocked. Like, I'm not an expert when it comes to builds, but, like, do I think the ones that you start with are better than the ones you unlock? So this, her chakram shift, so you throw out a chakram, deals damage, and when it hits an enemy nought, it will stick, allow you to shift to that nought. When she shifts, she leaves another one where she was. She can shift back, so she's a very in and out kind of ability. So you stick it to someone, teleport to them, do some damage, teleport back. Cool. Alright, sounds pretty good. So let's have a look at the abilities for this one. Increase the shift damage by 11%. It goes twice. I can't click on it twice, unfortunately, but yeah, seems like you want that. It's straight up just damage, flat damage. So when you shift to them, is that correct? So when you as you stick and shift the nought, when she shifts, she leaves another one. That's some kind of pass. And shifting to them deals, so you deal 180 damage when you shift them. So you do 180 damage with the chakram to start with, and then you do another 180 when you shift. So this is saying when you teleport to them. So yeah, straight up flat damage. Good. What's this one? Increases the lifetime of the chakrams by 1.5%. So that means you can you have a longer time to chase someone down and a longer time to get out. Fairly simple. Means you can teleport to and away from someone. Yeah, cool. And then enemies directly hit by this shift will get 7% amplified damage for 2 seconds. So what that means is, the reason why that's good is, in synergy with her other abilities, she already does a lot of damage because she's an assassin, that they take more, this goes up, I don't know what the max is for both of these upgrades, but they'll take more damage from your attacks. So you combine these 3 together, what do you get? You gain more damage when you shift to them, and when they're hit by them, so yeah, when you shift to them. You can shift to them when they're further away and get on top of them and get back. And when they get hit by the shift, you do more damage against them. So those 3 abilities combine really well. So now let's look at the ones that are locked, and we'll see if they're better than these 3. So we've got this. Enemies hit by a shift will deal 15% less damage for 2 seconds. So I mean, reducing somebody, and that's a one-time upgrade. So reducing an enemy's damage, you know, there's definitely situations where that would be really, really useful against someone, maybe like Clunk, Isla, some other assassin characters. You know, it also means that when you reduce their damage, you can sustain in the fight longer and hopefully kill them before they can kill you. Increase the damage of the chakram and shift versus droids by 200%. So yeah, you can become a lane clearer. And lastly, you and nearby allies will receive a speed bonus when you throw your chakram, increasing movement speed by 20% for 2.5 seconds. So that's when you and your nearby allies receive speed bonus. Okay. So that's pretty good because that buffs everybody. So now we've got a buff, a increased damage versus droids, and enemies hit by a shift will deal, you know, less damage. Now, just this one set of upgrades, I would say, as a beginner, you probably are better off getting these three here. I think these synergize much better. These are much more specialist, and I think that's what they were trying to go for with them. Now, I'm not saying this is the same with every character. I'm going to show you an example of a character who absolutely has one of the best upgrades locked in a second. But like, if I was playing this character and who I haven't locked these things, I would be going for this. I'm doing increased damage, longer chance to get in and out, and doing more damage versus reducing their damage, doing damage, and becoming a lane pusher, and essentially buffing allies. So it just is one here, you know. We've got the same here. We've got the 7-star strike. So what's this? This is temporarily make poisonous blades deal damage in an area, increases attack speed by 30%, also grants 10% life steal, increases the damage and duration of the damage over by 100%. So you already do the poison damage anyway, but this basically you do like a really fast attack, life steal, and more damage. So it's crazy powerful ability. And so we got, these are the 3 upgrades we got. Again, you got one that increases duration of 7-star strike by a second, so you can do more damage, like straight out. That's good. Just straight up better. Increases movement speed during 7-star strike. Absolutely, if you're chasing somebody down in conjunction with the ability for you to teleport in and out. Massive. always good movement speed. And then increase the strike damage by 15% when there are multiple noughts nearby, so the more people there are, the more damage. Okay, so these two absolutely great. So let's look at the ones that upgrade out again. Gain a shield when 7-star strike starts. The shield has 100 hit points and provides immunity against slow, stun, snare, gravity, time warp. Wow, that is powerful. Increase the lifesteal effect of 7-star strike by 15%. Increase the damage over time during 7-star strike by 12%. So, this gives you movement speed so you can chase people down. This makes it last longer. And this does more damage when there's noughts in. Whereas this is you gain a shield and makes you immune to things. This increases the lifesteal. And this increases damage over time. So this, on the other hand, unlike this one I think the first 3 upgrades are fine. Like, locking these is totally fine. This, on the other hand, I would say this one here is nowhere near as powerful as some of these ones. Yes, so the more noughts there are, you'll do more damage with it. But having a shield that makes you immune and has 100 hit points, that's really powerful. Increasing the lifesteal effect of 7-star strike by 15%, that's really useful. Survivability. And then doing more damage over time, also really powerful. So that's just 2 examples of where, like, yes, the first teleport stuff works really well. I'm not saying that this stuff doesn't work well together, but the problem here is that there are straight up what I would say better abilities locked. So yeah, you're going to be fine with these, absolutely. You don't need any of these. These are more specialist. These don't feel as specialist unless you're playing as much more of a diving character, I guess. But even then, I think this Salty Seal is like, why would you not get that? That just seems like a no-brainer to me. Now, let's go to a character that I actually do play. And we'll look at his items. Now, I've unlocked all the characters. We're specifically going to look at the shotgun, the machine gun. Because there is one really powerful upgrade here that requires you to be level 3, and that is this one here. Increases the knockback on shotgun shots by 400%. If you are a new player and you don't have access to this, it makes it really difficult to get characters off of you. So if there's a Leon, there's an Isla, there's any kind of assassin, when you have this 400% knockback, it sends them flying. It's also a very defensive ability, but if you look at the rest of his abilities, this to me is like, you don't always need it, but you should have access to it from the start. So you have adds a grenade shotgun shots will do 80 arrow damage. It's actually pretty good. It's annoying, so obviously it's good for getting rid of droids. It's good for like Just doing extra damage makes it annoying when you're trying to run away from him. Makes Ted basically shoot you and then fire a grenade in your face. Increases the base damage with shotgun and machine gun. Yeah, absolutely. This is fine. Adds 1 shotgun shell to your ammo, which is double, so you can do 6 shots instead of 4 eventually. And then we have adds a long range snipe shot to the machine gun every 1.2 seconds if not fired, which deals 135 damage. And then increase the range of machine gun by 32%. So here is a perfect example of this tree, and maybe they had a different philosophy afterwards, but as a free-to-play player, these 2 upgrades here are much more important than this grenade one and adding ammo to your shotgun, because this is range. Putting your range for your machine gun being 32% longer makes a huge difference. So it's really important that this should be open to you from the start. If I had to rearrange these, right, I would take the shotgun one, put it in there with the grenades, and I would take the add the shotgun shells in, and I'd replace it with these 2, and then you have the tetras, which adds a long range snipe, which I will absolutely say, like, people can disagree with this. I think this is useless and rubbish and has very little application. This is one of the worst upgrades that Ted has. And honestly, this is why you shouldn't lock these items away from people that are playing the character. I mean, Jack primarily plays Rocco. Whenever he wants to play another character that isn't leveled up, he cannot, like, actively do that. And that's a problem. You know, so when I say, is this model good for the game? No, it isn't. I'm not as... I guess I'm not as bothered by it because I play most of the characters I've got and level them up, but I also bought the game. I completely understand someone who's new to it. It's going to be frustrating as hell. And it's something that I think it's unlikely to change now because I don't think they're supporting the game as much as they were, but yeah, like, this is a problem because it stops people from playing games. I'm not, like, not in all cases. This is just a very good case of this being bad. If we look at the airstrike, because Ted's a hard character to play anyway, but let's look at the airstrike. So the airstrike basically shoots down, airstrike comes down, hits when you got the machine gun out. So what's the first upgrade? Damage over time. Yeah, that's good. Increases damage against enemy Awesomenauts. Yep, really good. And allows a second airstrike to be fired 1 second after the first. Will reduce the base damage of airstrike by 33 and the heal of hamburger phone by 33. So you can have 2 airstrikes, they do less damage, but you can cover more area, and you get less health from the hamburger one. You got this one that adds a 0.5 stun to the airstrike. After the airstrike, a health pack supply drop, and airstrike will go through terrain all across the map. So these 2 are absolutely worth it, right? I think in this case, these are all specialist, because these 2, absolutely you want damage over time on it, and you want it to do more damage against naughts. I would say maybe you put the health pack drop instead of double RPG, and you drop these 3 here. I will say in this case for the airstrike, you don't, all of these kind of vary depending on who you're playing with, because the 0.5 stun's okay. The shoot through terrain is good if you're in a top lane, but I tend to play bottom lane with Ted anyway, so it doesn't matter. I don't really ever go for the health pack, but that might be something I look into. And then I never really go for double RPG. Normally I guess I go for bear and those 2. So in this case, I actually think what they give you is pretty fine, and these are it just depends who you're playing with. If you look at, like, if we look at another character, for example, let's have a look at. Let's take a look at an easy character to use. Let's look at Lone Star. Lone Star has a dynamite throw, and we'll specifically look at this, right? And so you've got increase the damage, so there's more damage, increase the explosion size, make it bounce. Alright, so that's what you start with. You then have each hit against an enemy with your blaster will reduce the cooldown of dynamite, adds lifesteal, adds damage over time. So here you have an interesting thing where you can do maximum damage with it. It blows up, so it does more damage to people around it, and they bounce. And I would say that's a pretty good starting session, but maybe you should still have access to the damage over time one. If you look at his gun ability here, you have increased damage of your shots, increased attack speed, adds a missile. What's this one? Increases the base damage of shots by more. So you get... makes bullets and missiles do damage in the air, which is interesting, and then adds another missile. Yeah, these 2 are great. I would probably say maybe this is okay, but again, Lone Star's an earlier character. There are some characters here that this is not a problem to, but it's very clear that there are some characters here that this is a problem to. and as much as it's not so much a problem for me, because most of the characters I personally play, I've got them unlocked, it is a problem with the game, and anyone who's new to the game is going to be a little bit frustrated trying out certain characters, because they are limited to play a very specific style. They have to go for those first 3 upgrades, which hopefully is balanced in a way that those first 3 upgrades are the ones, but you can't do specialist builds without those other upgrades. Now, yes, I agree that on the side of it being like it's a bit easier for a newbie, go, oh, I don't have to look at, I don't have to read all these things, but it's still not really a good enough excuse not to have all that stuff open from the start. And I think that both Jack and Dave made a good point on that. Like, you know, if you're playing a character, you should have that freedom to do it. So yes, I understand the idea that, hey, you're new to the game, play this character a few times, get the hang of him, and it will give you extra stuff that you can experiment with. But if you're experienced with MOBAs, or you play a hell of a lot of one character and then you move to a different character, you then have to do that process again. And that I can see is like frustrating. Maybe the way you fix this, if you want to balance it both ways, is you just have a straight level system. When you hit level 3 in that system, all the items are unlocked for all the characters. So it doesn't matter who you play, all the items are unlocked. And I guess playing free to play is different because it's a weird model. But when I bought the game, you know, I still had to level them up, but it was less of an issue. Now it's more of an issue when you're playing with somebody who hasn't bought the game at the time and is getting into it. So I absolutely agree with those guys. I do think it's a bad decision on the developers to have that in there, because it is going to, for certain people, it is going to be a put off. They're only going to stick to 1 or 2 characters that they want to level up. Yeah, it's only till level 3, but that's going to vary how quickly you level up, you know. And I think that it's not the smartest way of doing this kind of model. I think if you're going to pick a character, maybe you do 1 level, you play them once, you start with the basic set, you get all the rest of it. That I think is okay, because you don't have to worry so much. But overall, it's not good when you have to do that with, you know, the amount of noughts that are here. That's a lot of characters. So yeah. Anyway guys, thank you very much for watching this video. Hopefully you've enjoyed it. If you like the video, hit like. If you want to see more content like this, then hit subscribe. Links for Facebook and Twitter will be down below as always. And until next time, I'll see you then.